Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Concord Township Board of Trustees meeting for Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. Would you all please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Mr. Rose, I assume you're calling the roll this evening?
Yes, sir. Mr. McIntosh.
Present.
Mr. Dondorfer.
Present.
Mrs. Lucci.
Present.
Thank you.
And our first order of business this evening is the Riverside School District update. Jumped ahead there, by Mr. Gary Platko, the Treasurer and CFO. So welcome this evening, sir.
Woohoo, woohoo. Applause.
Thank you. I mean, you guys know who I am, but for those who
Yes.
don't know, I'm Gary Platko, Treasurer and CFO from Riverside. We like to come out, once or twice a year, kind of give a financial update and just kind of some things, kind of give you guys some updates on just things going on around the district. I was hoping to have our new superintendent, Dr. Rottino, here tonight, but unfortunately he had a conflict. We do have our Board President, Lori Kuniski, here, decided to join us instead. So I have a few slides to go through, just kind of give some information. So if you want to put those up there. Just kind of wanted to review some of the revenue for the Riverside Local School District. This is for our fiscal year end ending June 30th, 2023. In my world, I'm in 2024 right now, but our fiscal year just ended. And our total revenue is $50.9 million for fiscal year 23. Approximately 60% of that revenue, or $30.5 million, comes from general property taxes. That's your Class 1, Class 2 residential commercial property taxes. About $3 million, or 6% of our revenue, comes from public utility taxes. About 15% of our revenue, so it's the green section there, about $7.3 million, and about $450-some thousand on top of that comes from the state foundation formula through the state funding we get from the biennium budgets. In the top left, it says property tax allocation. That's how ODE has us put it down, but it's actually your homestead rollback reimbursements from the state of Ohio. That makes up about $3.8 million of our revenue, or 7%. And in the orange section, all other revenue, that includes revenue we receive from the joint financing district, which is that joint levy between Riverside, Painesville, Perry, and Madison. And also just other things like classroom fees, pay to participate fees, interest revenue, and those type of other items. The next slide here just kind of shows our current levies that are in effect. Our total general fund millage is 26.7 mils. Our last operating levy was in 2017. We have a permanent improvement levy, and then also the levy from when we built Parkside and Riverview, for a total millage of 30.02 mils. On the next slide, this kind of shows where Riverside falls with the other school districts in Lake County. As you can see, Riverside's the third lowest school district tax rate, with Perry's at the bottom with the power plant. We don't really count them. It's usually Riverside and Madison are usually the second and third lowest, depending on who had the most recent levy. And even if you include the joint financing district, which is 1.94 mils, we're still at the third lowest below Mentor. And I'm sure you guys are aware that Mentor has a 2.5 mil new money ask on there for permanent improvements on the ballot this November, which is not reflected there. That would, if voters approve that would move them higher. On the expenditure side, our total expenditures for fiscal year 2023 was $48.8 million. If you were to look at this pie chart for every school district in the state of Ohio, it'd probably look very similar, with salary and benefits being the majority portion of that. So personnel services, our salaries, $27.5 million, or 56% of our expenditures, with employee benefits, including health insurance, retirement, vision, dental, things like that. About 23% of our expenditures, or $11.1 million. The green section, purchase services, that includes repairs, utilities, postage, and other contracted services, about $7.3 million, or 15% of our expenditures, with supplies being about $1.7 million, or 4% of our expenditures, with a few other miscellaneous items there as well. The Ohio Department of Education puts out a report called the District Profile Report, also known as the CUP Report, and it gives a lot of statistics about school districts. The one I pulled here, just because we're talking about expenditures, is expenditure per pupil. The state average is $12,800 spent per student. Riverside spends $11,864 for this is going back to fiscal year 2022, which is the most recent data available. We're the third lowest in the county on as far as expenditure per pupil, so we try to maximize our taxpayer dollars and use those efficiently. You can see usually it's second or third lowest. Usually we flip the flop with Fairport Harbor from time to time, depending on the year. This next slide here is a very short summary of our 5-year forecast. So we're required to, every district in the state of Ohio is required to file a 5-year forecast in November of each year with a spring update in May. So this was the May forecast that was filed with the Ohio Department of Education. And so the fiscal year 2023 results, they aren't exact because I didn't want to update the figures from our forecast, but they came in almost close to being dead on. Our revenues came in 0.06 higher, and our expenditures were about 0.24% higher. But with an ending cash balance around $25.8 million for fiscal year 23. If you look at fiscal year 24, you see a little bit of red there. Our revenues our expenditures start to exceed our revenues a little bit. We'll probably overcome that because we didn't project any increases in state fundings. We didn't know what the state budget was going to happen, what's going to happen with that. The simulations from the Legislative Service Commission says we're going to see a $500,000 increase. I'm not so sure if that's going to be the case, but we'll update this in November. But basically, the long story short is probably fiscal year 2025 will actually start truly deficit spending. And you'll see, usually the forecast is usually pretty conservative, so we tend to, I wouldn't say overestimate, but we tend to be, we estimate a little bit lower on our revenues, a little bit higher on our expenditures to ensure that we can see when the financial needs coming. And this is kind of like your weather forecast, where the forecast for tomorrow is certainly more accurate than the forecast for a week from now. So it's kind of the same logic with this. So we'll keep an eye on that. We don't anticipate being on the ballot the next couple of years for operating money, but that time will be coming probably in the 26-27 time. But we update these twice a year, and we'll hopefully can extend that depending on future state budgets as well, because we only get a 2-year state budget, so we don't know what the next state budget is going to be and the one after that we're projecting. So we'll continue to update that and monitor our progress. Riverside was recently upgraded by Moody's Investor Services. So back in 2017, we had a bond rating established when we issued bonds to build Parkside and Riverview. We were given an A1 rating. If you look on the left-hand side, kind of shows the lineup of the different ratings. We were upgraded from A1 to AA3. Moody's describes AA3 as obligations rated as AA are judged to be of high quality and subject to very low credit risk. So that upgrade will certainly help us in the future if we decide to either refinance our bonds, issue new bonds in the future, or other debt, we can get more favorable interest rates. On their credit summary, they describe Riverside Schools as having a strong credit profile supported by its strong financial position, growing enrollment that's expected to continue through the next several years, strong resident income, and the proximity to Cleveland. These credit strengths are balanced against the district's elevated leverage and mixed voter support for operating and bond referendums. Then it goes on to reference the May 2022 bond issue that was rejected. And then it's always kind of funny, Moody's, they state that debt is likely to material rise if the district moves forward with significant borrowing plans in the near future. They like to kind of hold you back a little bit because it's almost like if you were to buy a house, if you're thinking about buying a house, it doesn't affect your credit score until you actually start the process. We're still working on a facilities plan going forward. We don't know what that's going to look like, what that borrowing will be like. But they still kind of hold that over your head like you're going to borrow money in the future. And I don't even know what that is. How do they determine that? Some of the factors that could lead to an upgrade would be sustained growth in operating reserves and liquidity, or material decline in leverage, basically paying off some of our outstanding debt. Factors that could lead to a downgrade would be significant weakening of resident income or enrollment trends, or material narrowing of operating reserves or liquidity. Next slide, just wanted to highlight we received the Auditor State Award for fiscal year ending 2022. That's the 8th consecutive year that we've gotten that award. We take that very seriously, and we hope to continue that trend going forward. We also received the 4 stars of highest achievement for the open and transparent government. This is our 3rd consecutive year. That award's been around for 3 years, and we've achieved that every year, just being compliant with public records requests and having other information and items posted on our website and being open to the public. Just a couple of safety updates. I think I highlighted in this last time I was here. This past school year, we've committed to having 2 district-wide school resource officers. Those are employed by the Lake County Sheriff's Office, that they travel between buildings. They're mostly at the Riverside campus, but do go to the other schools as needed. And then the board committed to putting a full-time safety officer in every school building. Last year, we were able to start with Buckeye. Well, we already had them in Riverside campus and Lamuth. Last year, we expanded to Buckeye and Melridge, but we weren't able to recruit 2 additional people for Parkside and Riverview. We have done that. They're on our books now. They will be starting this school year. Unfortunately, the Riverside campus individual had left us for another school district, so we have a new officer being board approved next week, and so we'll be fully staffed with an officer in every building, plus the 2 district-wide school resource officers. So I think that's a great improvement we've done. And also some safety grants. We were awarded $400,000 through the Ohio K-12 Safety Grant Program. We bid out a construction project to construct secure entrances or vestibules at all of our legacy buildings, which are Riverside Campus, the Lamuth Middle School, Buckeye Elementary School, and Melridge Elementary School. The board will be voting on the construction contract next week. Construction will be completed by the end of next summer. We were really hoping to get it done this summer, but we weren't able to get everything in line, so that will most likely happen next summer. If there's an opportunity to do some of that work during the school year, we will try to do that. We also received an Ohio Attorney General Safety Grant. This is an annual grant we get each year. We got $23,357 for that. And we were also recently awarded a new Attorney General's School Law Enforcement Technologies Linking Safety Grant of $20,000. These funds are being used for camera upgrades throughout our older school buildings. So at the Riverside campus, it includes the replacement of 60 existing cameras and also additional cameras put in the exteriors and in the common areas. Melridge Elementary School is going to get a whole new camera system. Buckeye's going to have a lot of cameras replaced and some additions, and then Lamuth Middle School will also have some replacements and some additions. That's all work is happening right now, so that'll all be in place for the next school year. And then lastly, the facility improvements. The board, we entered into a contract with Bioloski Cleveland. They're doing a formal facility assessment of all of our legacy buildings. So that's, again, the campus, Lamuth, Buckeye, Melridge. They're basically going to come up with what improvements need to be done to those facilities and in what order and what that cost estimate would be. They're supposed to have that report done around September 30th, and the board will have work sessions in the fall to review that report and determine what our next facilities plan may look like. With that, this kind of brings me to the end here. If there's any questions or you want me to expand upon anything, I can certainly do that. Or if there's anything interested in hearing in a future update, we can certainly put that together for you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, next order of business is the approval of the minutes from the July 5th, 2023 regular trustee meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the July 5th, 2023 regular trustees meeting minutes.
And I will second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3 ayes. Elected officials report. This evening, our fiscal officer, Mr. James Tekenip, is not available, so we will move into trustees. Mrs. Lucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we've been enjoying our summer concerts. Hopefully we can squeeze one in tomorrow with the weather forecast. We'll see what happens. Since our last meeting, I did receive a call regarding some zoning questions from a property owner here in the township. I had a resident thank us for the work on the Brightwood Lake Kellogg Creek Restoration Project, which is pretty near complete. We had some calls regarding some tall grass and mowing on some of our county roads, which the county did take care of. Thank you very much. A resident did call regarding questions about utility prices and NOPEC, and thank you to Andy for helping the resident understand that apples to apples website. And last, I did attend my last Ohio Township Association leadership class in Columbus, and it was great because we get to speak with fellow trustees on some of the other challenges in our Ohio townships, like safety, road repairs, and a lot of questions on what it takes to build a fire station. So that's good.
You're an expert.
It's well, it's interesting because there's many unique needs managing every township depending on how many people, what the terrain is, or how much, what the population and what the land is like. So it's great to understand those diverse needs. I'm very happy to have participated in that nice offering from OTA, so that was very enjoyable. With that, I know it's graduation party time, so congratulations to all the graduates. We wish you luck in your next endeavors, and with that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Lucci. Mr. Gondorf.
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh. I just had a few calls from some residents regarding some zoning complaints that I will get with Heather Freeman on. I did have the honor of attending the One Ohio District 13 meeting today in Geauga County regarding the opiate settlement in Ohio. And I'm happy to report that the state of Ohio has contracted with a software company who will be building out the application and grading process for each district. And we're hoping to be going live on that beginning of October of this year, so we can start generating some of those applications and getting some of the funding from that settlement to some programs that people need for addiction situations. So that we had a good meeting there today. We did have office hours prior to our meeting today. We did have a resident in and had some discussion on our safety within the community here. I'm sure we're going to have some more dialogue later on in the meeting, so I'll save my comments for that, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Gondorf. I would like to congratulate Amy Lucci on her graduation from the 2.0. That's the first class of the elevated leadership.
The inaugural class, yeah.
Greatest
Thank
class
you.
ever, right?
First
I know that
best.
goes a lot of hard work goes into those. We've all done the first version of it, so I commend you for just jumping right in and doing a second one. And Concord's lucky to have someone that's vested in being a strong leader.
Thank you.
Had a lot of conversation. Roads are ongoing. Proudy Road is wrapping up. I did also have some zoning complaints and talked to a resident about some needs to potentially pursue a zoning variance application. I've continued to put a lot of time in the fire station. I was able to walk through it a couple times this week already, actually, just to sort of take a look at it. Did get some questions about it. Has spent a little bit of time doing some diligence and preparing for this evening's votes, items A, B, and C. And we did entertain conversation during office hours. The resident had seen our press release and the advanced agenda, and we did have a good conversation. And with that, I would just like to acknowledge that this evening, I have a special guest here this evening. My mother-in-law is visiting out of town, and was willing to take some time and come and watch her son-in-law do the township's business.
Great.
So, Diane,
Good stuff.
welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're all happy to have you here. And with that, I will move on to department reports and Administrator Rose.
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh, members of the board, members of the audience, good evening. Few items on the agenda I'd like to cover up front. I think the big ticket items A, B, and C on the agenda are resolutions that will have the Lake County Auditor certify potential tax amounts. The reason that we're doing 3 resolutions, and I know there'll be some discussion, but the reason we're doing 3 resolutions is to look and obtain information on 3 different levy scenarios to properly evaluate the best course of action. So I will encourage passage on all 3 and then get those over to the auditor tomorrow to have them start the certification process. Item D is a purchase order. That's to the Lake County Utilities Department. That covers the sanitary capacity fee, which allows us to tie in the community center into the county sanitary sewer system. That's part of the Auburn Road Sanitary Sewer Extension Project. And that project has moved along well, and it picks back up again on Monday. The crews will be back. The Auburn Road part is done. It has passed all its appropriate pressure tests by the county. And now they're going to work on the lateral that goes from the community center to the sanitary main. So that'll be picking back up on Monday. And that project should be completed by the end of August, because after they finish hooking it up, then they've got to remove the old septic system. So that's moving along smartly. The joint road repair program is moving along nicely. We do anticipate a change order. There were some additional full depth repairs in Noble Ridge once they skimmed the road down. And there was an allowance for some full depth repairs, but we believe that it's been exceeded a little bit. But we'll have a very good road when we're done. Currently, they've got the initial course of asphalt down, and they're installing the concrete curbs this week. I saw the crews out there today. And once that's all done, then the final course of asphalt will be applied. And then there's also the 3 other roads, Huntoon, Rogers, and Gray. The roads that are in Noble Ridge are Jamie, Kenneth, and Brooklyn Way. So road program's doing very well and moving along nicely. And then finally, we did put out the amended agenda, so we put it at the very end, so I'll request the executive session at the tail end of the meeting, since there won't likely be any business after that. And that concludes my report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Audience portion. Anybody from the audience wishing to address the board this evening? Seeing none. Moving to old business, of which there is none, which brings us to the new business. And before we get into discussions of items A, B, and C, I do want to read for the record a memorandum that we received, the trustees received on July 13th from the fiscal officer to the trustees regarding safety service levy replacement options. Trustees, due to unforeseen circumstances, I will be out of town for the July 19th, 2023 meeting. As a follow-up to the 3 options I presented during the staff meeting, attached is the updated spreadsheet for the Safety Services Fund showing 3 possible scenarios, which include increases of 2.3 mils, 2.5 mils, and 3 mils for a replacement levy. These options are captured in the resolutions asking the Lake County Auditor certifications being voted on at the July 19th meeting. Once the resolutions are returned by the Lake County Auditor with certified amounts, I will coordinate and review these with our administration and fire department leadership. I intend to provide you with a recommendation at the August 2nd, 2023 meeting. As you are aware, shortfalls were identified during the 2023 appropriations process. As a new fiscal officer, the review process was helpful and identified the need for a revenue increase due to increasing costs with both fire and law enforcement services. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain some conversation if we want to just do that before we get into our votes.
Sure.
I
can start. I prepared some comments, but I'll just speak from the heart here. We all pride ourselves on being good stewards of the township, and I think part of that is being transparent with our residents. And with that, we all, I think, agree that public safety is critical to the health and wellness of any community.
Yep.
And we've been fortunate to have great safety services here in Lake County. We have great firefighters. We have a great contract with the Lake County Sheriff's Office. And our resources are at a point where we've recently entered into a grant program with the county commissioners to fund additional deputies for proactive patrols and law enforcement response within not only Concord Township, but Perry Township, Painesville Township, all the townships. And that was funded through the Clerk of Courts title fund, and it was very helpful to insert and saturate more seasoned law enforcement officers within the townships. Unfortunately, the continuous safety services levy that we are operating on right now will be unable to sustain that once we have to take over the salaries of those law enforcement officers and firefighters after the grant funding runs out from the Board of Commissioners. And why do I mention that off the front here is it's very important because is being a law enforcement officer for over 30 years, this profession has been confronted with several difficult challenges over the last couple of years, and those challenges can definitely have an impact on the communities that we serve. And what I mean by that is, we see it. We've seen it in Cleveland recently with, a lot of the crime that's happened in the last couple of weeks. They had mass shootings down there, property damage to several vehicles. They had some armed robberies, carjackings. And the reason why we're seeing in that peak in crime is because there is reactive law enforcement going on. And what I mean by that is there's a lack of manpower resources within the Cleveland Police Department. They're short over 300 officers. They can't fill an academy class to get new officers in. So what you have is you have an increase in crime, and you have less resources to respond to those crimes. So they're not getting ahead of the crime. They're reacting. They're going to the call. Those calls stack, and it starts infiltrating into the suburbs. So what's important in combating crime in this current trend that we're seeing, which is a different element, is being proactive. Proactive law enforcement is getting ahead of the crime and identifying it before it happens, so it doesn't happen, and you don't have victims, or you keep your community safe. I think a big part of that, which contributes to our commitment to proactive law enforcement, is that we're working with the sheriff's department to fund and install the flock cameras, which are big proactive law enforcement tools. But you need officers to react to those flock hits so they can respond to that area once that camera hits and conduct a traffic stop on a stolen vehicle or a wanted felon, and determine what they're doing within our communities. So, I'm a big advocate for proactive law enforcement. It's the only way we're going to get through this. So I think it's important for the community to know that we need to maintain the level of service we have right now with the deputies that we're funding. Unfortunately, that's going to require us looking at additional funding and a change in the current safety levy in regards to a replacement and a small additional ask, so that we can keep the level of services that we have now and be proactive, have saturated patrols within our neighborhoods, and keep our residents safe. So our goal is, in being transparent, is to have some initial dialogue, and then welcome the community into some stakeholder meetings and have some discussion and answer some questions. I know the sheriff is willing to be involved, as well as the chief deputy, but it's important. I mean, it's going to be an important decision. We shouldn't be making it. We should be making it after discussion and dialogue with members of the township and the other townships. I know the other townships are also putting levy initiatives regarding their safety within their communities, or Painesville Township and Perry Township. So it is important, to maintain the level of service that we have, because the sheriff provides a lot of services. Not only do we get patrol deputies that respond to the calls and are proactive day to day, we get a detective bureau. We have resources that are on task force that specifically combat certain crimes, like internet crimes against children, the fugitive task force. All those task forces are manned by not only federal and state law officers, but local officers that help out our communities. And what I don't want to see is a lack of funding, where we have a situation where we had it in 2008 when I was in the sheriff's department, where we had to lay off officers because we didn't have funding to support them, and then we had to move detectives back to the road. We didn't have officers to investigate cases, and we went from a proactive approach to a reactive approach, but we were able to bounce back and be proactive. We need to maintain that proactive law enforcement within Lake County.
Yeah, Mr. Dondorfer, your experience speaks volumes. You're still in safety services, and I think we've prioritized safety in a lot of our decisions here with the township. It is our duty to keep our residents safe, and it's great to hear that you have resource officers in place for all the schools. That means so much to our community. People don't want to move here if we have a lot of crime. Businesses don't want to come. We definitely want to keep the officers that the additional officers that we had from the COPS grant. And obviously our our fiscal officer showed us that with current revenues right now, we're not going to be able to do that. So we have to think of a way that we can all come together and figure out how to keep them. And it's important to maintain competent police officers and firefighters, to keep them safe and to retain them, because we all know how much money it is to hire and train, and then they go somewhere else, and we need to have the salary competition in order to keep them. I think police presence certainly matters. It's a deterrent. It's sort of like preventative health care. Police presence here will deter crime, which is, I think, also important for our community. And so we're hoping for more discussion on this and hope to see that it works favorably for Concord Township.
Yeah, I know that when Mr. Tegenip stepped in as our new fiscal officer and had to get into the process, there was a lot of conversation, and the appropriations process was a little bit trying this year as far as our budgets, and so definitely have a very crystal clear understanding of the need. And obviously the safety services levy has been in place for 7 years, and when you think about things being relatively static and what the township's gone through in the last 7 years as we continue to grow, Concord is the fastest growing community in Lake County, second highest property values. We've got a lot going on. We, as a board, responded to that, taking on the challenge with regard to the fire station, recognizing that our fire service needed to upgrade its facilities, both facilities dating back to 1966. This is the same issue. We need to take care of our first responders, and we need to reevaluate this levy. We need to consider replacing it, which is going to take away the current levy and come back with a new total figure. So we're not adding to it. It's just updating the current safety forces, and that was a decision the former board made, was to create one really super fund in a lot of ways that fund our safety services. And we all see the need in law enforcement across the country. Here in Lake County, as a grand jury foreperson earlier this year, I can attest to, it's one of those things that somebody who had an experience in law enforcement can sit back down and listen to those cases, and you get hit with the reality of what they are. You know that they occur, these things are happening. When you sit there and, like Mr. Dondorfer sees on a regular basis, the facts of the cases and the officer's testimony and testimonies of victims, you realize the, I don't know, brutality is not fair, but the humanity of crime and what it does to our communities, and you realize how important that is. And we know that over the last couple of years, we've now done a series of promotion interviews with the fire department staff. We've had converted some of our part-timers to full-time in an attempt to curb the overtime and reduce our labor costs. But in that process, we all sat here and said how proud we were of our fire service and what an excellent, we interviewed these people, and you can just tell they care with their heart and their soul the job that they do. And we need to be there to make sure our fire service, our community is very dependent. We continue to increase our call volumes of the fire department, the demands on it, just like the need for the station. We need the staffing. We need to support them. And happily, as I've said a couple times, I'm very proud that all of the townships have come together to work on this, because the sheriff's department multiple townships contract with the sheriff's department, and the sheriff's department covers these townships out here. And so we're all in this together. If something happens, like happened a couple years ago in Painesville Township, all law enforcement's going there. So this isn't just an effort for Concord Township. The Township Association across the county has come together, and even the Madison trustees came in support of it, because we all know policing these communities is a cooperative effort, and it's not just we're thinking outside the borders of Concord for the greater protection of our community here. So we know the challenges are going to be attracting and retaining the people that we have, and this is just the first step in that process. So I am proud to sit on this board that we've made public safety and our safety forces such a priority. And so with that, I see the need, and nobody really loves to run around and raise taxes, but we give the voters a chance to dialogue with us. We'll have town hall stakeholder meetings. People could come and ask questions, and we'll make our case, and hopefully people will agree with us, and we'll have the funding we need for our police and fire.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-10, declaring it necessary to levy a 6.3 mil additional replacement tax levy of 5 years for the purpose of providing sufficient funding for police, fire, ambulance, and emergency medical services.
And I'll second.
Should we do roll call?
I would recommend a roll
All right,
call
let's
vote
do-
on these first three, just
We'll do a roll call vote on that. So let's, Mr. Rose, will you please call the roll?
certainly. Mr. Dondorfer?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucci?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Resolution 2023-11, declaring it necessary to levy a 6.5 mil additional replacement tax levy of 5 years for the purpose of providing sufficient funding for police, fire, ambulance, and emergency medical services.
I will second.
And a roll call vote?
Mr. Dondorfer?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucci?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-12, declaring it necessary to levy a 7.0 mil additional replacement tax levy of 5 years for the purpose of providing sufficient funding for police, fire, ambulance, and emergency medical services.
And I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dondorfer?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucci?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, I move to approve purchase order to the Lake County Department of Utilities in the amount of $18,210 for sanitary capacity fee at the community center.
I will second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3 ayes.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve the promotion of Nicholas Light to the position of part-time firefighter paramedic effective July 5th, 2023.
And I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve purchase order to Sun Rental in the amount of $5,560.16 for balance due on tent rental for Community Day 2023.
And I will second.
Looking forward to Community Day.
Me too.
That tent is
Hangs
that
in
tent
there.
is great.
It's gonna be a
Fantastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Mr. Rose, are you handling future meeting announcements?
Yes,
Meetings and
sir.
announcements this evening?
Future meetings and announcements. Monday, July 31st at 3 o'clock will be the staff meeting here at Town Hall. Tuesday, August 1st at 7 p.m., the Zoning Commission will meet here in Town Hall. And then on Wednesday, August 2nd, from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. will be trustee office hours in the conference room, followed at 7:30 p.m. with the trustee meeting here in Town Hall. And that concludes future meetings and announcements.
All right. And for the last,
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to move to executive session for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter pertaining to employment pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1.
I'll second.
and a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Dondorfer?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucci?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.